Today we're gonna walk you through one of the absolute most deadly walleye tactics for catching walleyes right now. Doesn't matter if it's early in the year, in the middle of the dog days of summer, or in fall. This is one of the best ways to catch walleyes. We're gonna hop in the boat with Will Pappenfus, and he's gonna break it down for you right now.
With forward facing sonar really taking the scene and everybody getting their hands on it and getting to play with it, bobber fishing has drastically made its way back into the fishing industry. You see it, everybody doing it around lately, basically because it's one of the best tools you can do to target fish when you're using forward facing sonar. Fish are off the bottom, you know, 4 to 10 feet at times, cruising around. It's really easy to get a bait right in front of their face with just throwing a straight old bobber at them. I'm gonna give you a rundown of the meat and potatoes of what I've got going on my bobber rig. And we're gonna start out, I've got 6-pound mono on right now. We're fishing a little bit deeper today. You know, if you're fishing in the weeds and stuff, and you really gotta get those fish to come through the weeds, you're gonna wanna maybe go with a braid, but we're not doing that today. We're a little bit deeper. I've just got 6-pound mono, and I've got down to a Northland balsa bobber. I've got an 1/8 ounce bullet weight on top right now because I'm using an 1/8 ounce jig, so I wanna be able to balance my bobber about perfect with the waves. You know, if I'm throwing a plain hook or something like that on, I might throw a 1/4 ounce bullet sinker, or if you want to throw just an egg weight on there, kind of play around with whatever you're feeling. I've got a bead just in front of it to a swivel just to make sure that I'm not wrecking my knots in front of there. I've got about a 6-pound leader down to an 1/8 ounce deep V jig. Blue is definitely my favorite color, especially when you're fishing out in the basin and stuff. Kind of looks like a shiner, so when they're chasing bait fish and stuff, play around with colors, see what they're working, but blue always seems to be my favorite. And also above my bobber, I've got just a bead right in front to keep my bobber stop from going through the bobber. You want to have a rod that's got bigger eyelets on it so you can have a bobber stop that flies through the guides when you're casting it. It's not always moving your bobber stop in and out when you're casting in and retrieving. You know, you want to have something that's good, it's going to flow right through. You can make accurate casts because being right on these fish and right in front of their face is a big game when you're throwing bobbers around.
So that's a quick run through on Will's bobber setup from top to bottom, and now he's going to talk a little bit about the hook set and how long he lets them eat.
So when using a jig, you don't have to wait too long. You usually want to hit it right away before they feel it. You just want to load your rod up, give her a good hook set. You know, you don't need to set it home like you're, you know, throwing hay over your head or nothing like that. You know, just give her a good load up, give her a good hook set, and just like that, we got us a good one.
You want me to scoop them for you?
Yeah, if you want to. It's a good one. Come here, buddy.
Sorry. One-handed scoop.
All right, just like that, just putting it right in front of their face. That deep V is buried. Just got it right in front of its face. Didn't think about it. Instantly just smoked it. That's not a bad fish at all. And that fish was about 6 feet off bottom. And we're only in like 20, 21 feet of water, and that fish was right below the surface almost, just cruising around chasing bait and just throwing that jig and a leash right in front of their face.
If you're able to get your hands on some technology that allows you to scan, see that a walleye is right there, and drop a bobber right on its head, obviously that's gonna up your odds. That's gonna be a pretty darn good way to catch them this time of year. But with that being said, it's not a guarantee. It's not some magic bullet or anything like that. Some fish just aren't gonna wanna bite. And you know, depending on their mood, maybe they don't want that leech fluttering right in its face, but they might snap at a puppet minnow being ripped across their face. So anyway, it's just something to think about. Will's gonna talk now a little bit about how he reads the mood of the fish and determines, you know, maybe this fish isn't gonna bite my presentation and I need to move on.
So when I'm cruising around, you know, you're gonna find a lot of fish that aren't gonna eat. You know, they are walleyes, they are lethargic a lot of times. So, you know, I'll spend, you know, a certain amount of time on one fish. You know, if it's the right one, I'm gonna try to get it to eat. But don't catch yourself sitting on fish that aren't gonna eat too long. So move around, find some different ones. You know, you can kind of tell if those fish are gonna eat. You know, if they're swimming around looking at your bait, you know, you might get a couple to go. If they're just sitting there looking at it, not doing anything, you know, maybe come back to it, find something else. You know, I usually have my bobber set, you know, I wanna have it, you know, 2 or 3 feet above their head a lot of times, because I want those fish to come up and commit. So when they're just sitting there looking at it, they can't just sit there and move around. If they're gonna come up and eat it, they gotta commit, and they gotta decide now that they're gonna eat it. And if you keep it above a lot of times, you're just gonna get more bites. So I just marked one here. It was about 45 feet. You know, typical rule of thumb, I like to keep it within, you know, at least 30 feet away from them, depending on how clear the water is or how dirty it is. You know, if it's dirty, you can get a little closer. But typically I like to stay at least 30 feet away from them. That way they can't see the boat as good. A lot of times the farther you can get it, the better. So if you can get better with your accuracy, you can get them farther away. You know, rule of thumb, the farther away and you are, the more bites you're gonna get. But sometimes they're feeding enough that you can get right on top of them and they're not gonna care. But 9 times out of 10, you wanna stay at least 30 feet away from them.
Now obviously that distance is gonna vary from day to day, from lake to lake, depending on wind, water clarity, fishing pressure, stuff like that. But now I'm gonna throw it back to Will for another walleye.
So I got right on his head, just moving around. Just gonna load my rod up, give her a good hook set. Nothing crazy, just a good lift. And we got us a screamer on. So I was just working around, pitching at this one. I chased it around for about probably, you know, 10 minutes, wouldn't eat. Found one other one, dropped it right in his face, and before I knew it, bobber was gone. Sometimes you just gotta find that right fish. Just gotta keep moving around, working, keep throwing at different fish, see what their mood is, know which ones they're gonna eat, which ones aren't, go from there. You know, they're not all gonna eat, unfortunately. That's the way it works, but just keep working away, picking away, and we're just working on a nice bag of fish today.
If all of them bit, they'd be largemouth bass.
Yeah. And one of the biggest debates in bobber fishing, whether you're an amateur or you're a pro, everybody has their opinion on this. It's whether or not you should use a jig or just a plain hook. And Will is gonna talk a little bit on that right now while he's reeling in a fish.
Just load it up and it's like that. Ooh, shoulders.
Walter number 3.
Number 3 on the day.
I'm gonna flip around here.
A little smaller.
You can be your own net man on this one.
I got him. Get him in. Jig placement right in the front of the mouth. Doesn't get much better than that. Another angry one on the jig. The biggest thing, hold on one second, so let's go back. One of the biggest differences I see is, you know, using between a plain hook or if you're throwing a jig. Number one, I'd like to throw a jig if I can get away with it. A lot of times if they're more finicky, I'll throw a plain hook, throw a couple split shots above it. The nice thing about a jig is I can make accurate casts. I don't have to worry about my split shots moving up and down. With a jig, I know I'm gonna have a little bit better hook set on it. I can just hit them right away. I don't have to worry about it. You know, I like using a deep V more. It's got a little bit wider gap on it, a little bit longer shank on it. That way, if you know you do hook into a big one, you got a little bit of space in between there and you don't have to worry about it popping out of their mouth. So number one, deep V jig is definitely my go-to under a bobber.
Well, there you have it. That's about all we got for you in this video. If you're lucky enough to have this kind of technology, take advantage of it. Use bobbers, do some bobberscoping. Is that a new term? Can we start calling it bobberscoping? But anyway, it's a great way to catch fish. And if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, make sure to hit that little red subscribe button down below, so we have a lot more awesome videos coming in the future. And until then, we will see you in the next one.